Alright, hello everyone. So, this is a kind of preliminary update to the Permafrost Fragmentation rounds Witchhunter for 0.4. I say preliminary, and I need to get this out of the way because we don't have passive tree information, and I'll get into it later, but that is going to be a really important thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on league start, I'm going to slow myself down a little bit with whatever new build I plan on playing and spend a bit of time putting together a tree for this one, and I'll have that out on league start day. So you should have that basically as soon as I have the information. But this is a kind of a video explaining whether or not the build is still good in 0.4, given what we do know, and how I would build it. So TLDR, yes, it is. Um, we have hit some nerfs because I was kind of abusing a lot of the things that were strong. I'm not that surprised, but we've also got some really significant buffs and some really interesting buffs to other items that might and abilities that might change how the build plays. So I'm just going to go through them from nerfs to buffs to changes that might affect it and might not, or are neutral, and then things that open up new possibilities for the build. So, first, the elephant in the room. Constricting command has been nerfed significantly. This is a surprise to absolutely no one. This item is broken. So they're making it so that um, the way that it was strong is that you could have 5 fewer enemies to be surrounded, which means that you were surrounded when there were no enemies near you. Now this can only go down to 1 enemy near you. So you can't be permanently surrounded, you can only be surrounded when next to 1 enemy. This kills the item for most builds that used it, but not this one, in my opinion. Um, but it is still worse. So this build is a shotgunning build, right? This doesn't go very far. This you want to be as close as possible to get uh, the merging effect, the shotgunning effect, right? So um, for the damage component, which was the best part, like nodes like this one attack speed and this 100% increased attack damage node and that sort of stuff. This node here as well. These are still going to apply at all times, and this item is probably going to be very cheap. However, what we do lose is a lot of the convenience that this item gave, and a lot of the quality of life. So the regen while surrounded, the evasion rating while surrounded, this deflection one, the movement speed, because you're not going to have enemies near when you want this. Those things are all gone. So it is up to you whether you run this. I think the damage is still there. It's probably still worth it, unless there's a better unique element that's created. But it does mean that you probably don't want to pick these up and save the points elsewhere just to get more damage or more convenience. Or I would say go into, where are they? Like these nodes, but these probably aren't going to be here. Um, so who knows? You will have to, again, this is why I need the tree to be able to truly figure out what to do. Um, Next one, the next biggest nerf, Plasma Blast here, is going from, you can see here it has 50% more magnitude of shock inflicted. This is being changed to 50% increased magnitude of shock inflicted. This is a pretty massive nerf to this. As it stands, this with very little investment, just with these, the shock, overcharge, and lasting shock nodes, um, gave you a guaranteed 40% shock on bosses, any boss. So the modifier to shock application effect used to be 2.25 times. With this same gem setup in 0.4, it will be 1.5 times. So the shock will go from 40% guaranteed to 26% guaranteed, potentially more depending on hit rate, hit roll range. So that's about a 15% damage loss, 14%. Not the worst, but it is still a nerf. It's still worth running because, guaranteed shock application is strong. Next, this is to do with crafting. Homogenizing omens are being removed. I used homogenizing omens to make this amulet, so that's kind of upsetting. I also used it to make these gloves. but there's a very good chance that there are other crafts available that can, you know, fill the hole that they left. Um, this is fine, I think. I'm actually of the opinion that there's a pair of buffed gloves, which you may notice in my inventory, that are going to be the absolute best in slot anyway, so you probably don't even want rare gloves anymore. Next, Feral's Rune of the Chase, this one, and uh, lots of other ones, like Great Wolf's Rune of Claws, are now limited to one. This is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Again, this is fine for this one. I was running one Talisman of Cirrus, one Great Wolf's Rune of Claws anyway here. But more importantly, this modifier that I've got on both of these, 100% increased effect of socketed items, which was like the way to craft really strong late game items, is being reduced to 60%. I am not certain that that's going to be worth it to run anymore. Definitely not for the gloves. The gloves are completely out of the question. The boots might still be worth it, because 60% does hit a breakpoint for movement speed. It takes it from 5% to 8%, I believe. But you can only have one of these anyway, so at that point, all of the investment in this, just to hit, like, these are really expensive to make, just to hit 8% increased movement speed from a socketed thing. And Feral's Rune of Grace isn't going to be in the game anymore, I don't think. So that one's not even worth running either. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. There's probably going to be some strong crafting thing to do, and we can just do that, but I'm not sure. Finally, the last nerf in crafting is the Perfect Essence of Battle is going from +6 to level of all attack skills to +5. Again, this was kind of expected. Having it be objectively better than the really hard to roll +6 projectile modifier that is inherently on crossbows was pretty stupid. This is still worth using, I think. You just lose one level in your skills until you can craft something more expensive. I think that's fine. That's whatever. It's still super easy to apply, so that's fine. Now, onto the buffs, and some of these are really exciting. So first of all, Uruk's Smelting, which my build was pretty unique in using, I didn't really see many other people doing this, is going from taking 2% increased damage per proc up to 20% to 5% increased damage per proc. This will drastically increase the DPS ramp up for the physical component of fragmentation rounds. Now, when fighting single targets, what you do is you would get your freeze shattering shot, and it would break armor. It would remove the armor break because we're using what am I doing? We're using exploit weakness, right? And then it would hit again. So, and that would now be doing 5% increase more damage, and then 10% more damage, then 15, then 20. This means the ramp up for the secondary component of damage, because again, the way you do it is you freeze them, and then you fire once, and then you just keep firing, because you've got Shard Scavenger, and you machine gun them down if you don't kill them with the initial hit. So that is going to make that deal a lot more damage. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a caveat here, and that is that all global drop lineage supports are having their drop rate reduced, and we do not know how much. Hopefully, Uruk Smelting is still easy to get. This was very cheap last league, but maybe the reduce in drop rate and the increase in effect might make it more expensive, but I don't know. I kind of doubt it, because I think most people are going to be playing elemental builds, given how Druid is set up, but there could be some people using the fizz spells or whatever. Finally, two very significant ones. Not finally, what am I talking about? Fragmentation rounds, pierce 2 targets. That is going to 5 at max gem level. This is not that significant because you don't really use this for clear. But what is significant is Permafrost Bolts is also getting pierce and will pierce 5 enemies. These both also get 50% increased projectile speed, which will increase... I believe what this will do is increase its distance. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure increased projectile speed will increase the distance that this travels. So that's really good. This will be getting pierce. So it's going from 0 PS to 5 PS at max level. I believe it's 2 to 5. 2 at level 1, 5 at level 20. That is so good for clear, it's actually hard to put into words. Because what happened before is these would stop on the first enemy they hit and merge to deal damage. And then the Herald of Ice and the Witchhunter Ascendancy explosions would carry the clear from here. Now it's going to pass through all of them, freeze everyone, and guaranteed Herald of Ice proc from all of them without having to chain. Which means the pack destroying ability of this by itself is now so much higher. You're going to need a lot less damage to be able to one button and just hold this down. You're going to need way less because you're now going to have like significantly more Herald of Ice triggers happening, which will then be able to bounce off each other, deal the most amount of damage to those enemies in a small area. So this is going to increase clear significantly at all levels, but especially at low investment. Also, it's getting a secondary modifier. They're buffing this even more, which says that equal magnitude of chill that you inflict with this is also going to be inflicted as freeze. So this is going to drastically increase freeze buildup against most enemies as well, which it already had a lot of, like 664% more freeze buff at this level is crazy. And so now it's going to be even more. And of course, remember, if I'm interpreting this correctly, equal magnitude of chill inflicted as freeze is then going to be scaled by the more effect. But who knows? Basically, that's crazy. Next buff, and this is also relatively significant, Shard Scavenger is being buffed to have more duration of the buff. The buff is going from 2 to 3 seconds, and less cooldown between activations. So from 7.1 to 6 point something, I don't remember what the number was. This is just going to increase your single target damage, basically. This is really great against big pinnacle bosses. It's going to combine with the Uruk Smelting buff to make that Fragmentation rounds damage post the Shatter even higher. This is going to be, again, a very big buff at lower investment as well. It also makes the rotation and the uptime easier. And then finally, this one's kind of like a who knows sort of thing. What am I doing? Oh no, that's not important. Now, neutral. Abyss adding to core might make some of the in-game crafting less accessible depending on what they do with the drop rates. I used Abyss crafting for a lot of these. Abyss crafting is incredibly strong. I mostly use it for the gloves though, and the amulet. And then it's also going to make it a bit harder to get things like this. I don't know what the effect of this will be because we don't know what the drop rate's going to look like. But also, in the newer iteration of the build, we're going to be using less Abyss crafting anyway because we have guaranteed uniques, potentially. Magnified Area 2 support gem no longer causes the supported skill to deal less damage. This means it might be worth using on Herald of Ice. I'm not entirely sure. So currently... Oh god. These are the gem. Where's my support gems? So Magnified Area of 2 is currently 45% increased area of effect and 10% less area damage. It's going to go to no less area damage, which means it is, I believe, even on Overreach. Yeah. Why don't I have int? What did I do? Who knows? Whatever. Yeah, that makes it better than Overreach, which is cool. So that's just 5% more increased AoE. Nothing particularly significant here. And then finally, Rigwald's Ferocity, which by the way is not going to be affected by the drop rate changes because this is a boss drop, lineage support. You can farm this yourself from... let's see if I have one lying around. Oh dear. Ah, here we are. You can farm it yourself from Mansion in the Mists. It drops from the boss of this. It's one of 3 gems that can drop. But even then, it was never that expensive. It was like 30 exalts for most of the league. But yeah, this is getting the weapon set 1 effect. The more attack speed is changing to increased attack speed, but we're not using the weapon set 1 effect, we're using the weapon set 2 effect, so that doesn't matter. Now, unknown effect. The reduced movement speed penalty while using skills nodes are getting nerfed across the board, everywhere. This effect is being lower in all locations. It's getting nerfed across the board, but there are going to be more of them on the tree. I didn't take too many of these. So some, depending on what the tree looks like, there might be some that are worth taking now with additional effects. I don't know. But they really don't want people to have easy access to this effect. Next, as I mentioned before, world drop lineage supports are less common overall, and specific ones have been adjusted relative to others. I don't know how available Uruk smelting will be. Another thing, buff to tool stillness. I still don't think this gem is worth it. It's the lineage support that gives you Kola's extra chaos on an attack. I still don't think this is worth it because of the way that the conversions work, but it might be worth testing. We've also got buffs to Lightning Coil, which might make it worth using early game. But here's the stuff I'm really excited about. So first, this is really interesting. We can go in so many new directions now. Sorcery Ward, which is the other big thing that this Ascendancy offers, is buffed to the stratosphere. Oh, actually, no, before I get into that, there's something I missed in the buffs. Concentration has been buffed. This is going from 40% of the maximum life to 30%. This means that it takes less damage to fully break the concentration and get this modifier. So you build damage faster, basically. Again, a buff to mid-game, specifically, but also pretty good for endgame. Now, Sorcery Ward is buffed. I cannot tell you what the actual effect of this will be, because PoB does not work with Sorcery Ward. But basically, Sorcery Ward gives you a barrier, which takes elemental damage from hits from you until depleted, and instantly recharges to its full value a short time after you stop taking damage. So this takes LE damage equal up to 35% of your armor and evasion rating combined, but you have 35% less armor and evasion rating. Now this node is getting completely reworked, and it's going to be replaced with one that says Sorcery Ward also applies to physical and chaos damage. That is insane. This is like one of the biggest increases to max hit that this build could possibly get. So there are a few directions you can go in this. I think the build is still good with this Ascendancy setup, right? Depending on how available the damage is, you would drop the concentration stuff, because you do need both nodes to make concentration good. You need No Mercy. And you would take both of these instead. There are two ways to build it. Either you build pure evasion and still try and stack deflection rating on top of it, which I think is probably going to be the best one still. Because it makes the most sense as a combination of effects. You've got you've got evasion as the first layer. Hopefully most attacks won't hit you. Attacks that do hit you have a chance to be reduced, and then attacks that make it through that will then be absorbed by the Sorcery Ward. And that gives you more time of not being hit to recharge your Sorcery Ward again. I think that's going to be the best way to do it. However, it does open up some options for other things, and this will kind of go into some extra buffs, which I think are really cool, that might change how you build the defenses. First of all, Morior Invictus, which is one of my favorite items in the game, is getting so significantly buffed. This modifier is going from 2 to 300 to 3 to 400, so more armor, evasion rating, and energy shields will take it to about 1,000 in armor and evasion. And then a lot of these modifiers, these unique rollable modifiers, are getting buffed. So let me actually put the patch notes up for this one. So here are the ones that matter. So we're going from 6 to 10 per socket spell to socket filled to 10 to 14. This could be good. All res is going to 8 to 10. This one 45 to 60 life instead of 25 to 40. Really cool. This is one that I would consider. Global defenses, 9 to 12 per socket filled. This one I would definitely consider. And then these other ones I'm not too excited about. But there's also ones that already exist. There's the attribute ones, and then there's also increased life per socket filled. This, I think, is going to be really good. I really do think this is going to be really good. Definitely worth running potentially. You can get a lot of defensiveness out of this, and you can scale up your sorcery ward with the global defenses. My only concern is that if you compare the amount of, I mean, it's kind of similar actually. This is 2,000 evasion. This one will be around 1,000 armor and evasion, so 2,000 total. So it's not that far off what one of these would look like, but you do need to get your resistances elsewhere, or use all res soul cores in here, or get all res as one of the modifiers on it. I do think this is going to be really strong though, and this will definitely help with the sorcery ward route. But again, it's still also good to just go pure evasion, because doing this means that deflection rating is really hard to scale, which could be a problem, because deflection rating is all equal to your evasion, and if you're going 50-50 between each, then that's harder, and there's no planet on which you'll be able to invest into armor applied to elemental damage, because that is just going to be there's going to be too much suffix pressure. It does open up a lot of these ones, like the evasion is extra armor nodes here, evasion rating per armor on equipped gloves. This is probably going to be bad, because I think we're going to be using Sina Equio, that one. So yeah, I don't know, but you could also not run constricting command and then run something with way more defenses to kind of make up for that difference. Now, this leads into Sine Equio. This is the strongest buff to an item I've seen in a very long time. This item is kind of unusable outside of support situations. It says you immobilize enemies at 50% build up instead of 100. So freeze is an immobilization. Freezing enemies at 50% build up instead of 100 is insanely good. However, it has this modifier that says enemies immobilized but you take 25% less damage. This is getting removed. And not only is it getting removed, it is instead going to become take 25% more damage, which makes this probably the absolute objective best in slot item for the gloves. I don't think you can get a better thing in here, even with the best rare you could possibly craft, especially now that this modifier is getting nerfed. This is so good. This is crazy. The 50 build up at 50% is also crazy. It's going to add so much quality of life, and then also more damage, and also more clear. And it will combine with the piercing effect of Permafrost bolts to further increase the clear, and you get some skill speed as a nice little bonus. You lose some life, but then you can make up for it with Morior or Invictus. I think this is how I would build it, and I'm almost excited to do it. Like, it's almost convinced me to league start this again instead of making a new build, but I gotta stick to my new build that I make up on the spot every league sort of playstyle. But I will definitely test this out and, you know, inform you how good it is. But I have a lot of faith in this as the best option. So definitely look for this one. This is a drop. Both of these actually are a drop from Fiery Dickhead. What's his name? Why am I keep on wanting to call him Burning Exarch. I'm too PoE1 pilled. Oh. Yeah, Pinnacle of Flames, that guy. Yeah. It's a drop from him. So it's a bit... it's going to be available a little bit later. But this item... And this item also might be expensive, because this seems super strong. But it's definitely like the endgame option. Absolutely the best. Now the rest of it, in total, we're probably even on damage with all of those changes. Using Constricting Command still. Not using Constricting Command, we're slightly lower on damage, but way higher on damage in the mid-game, which is where it matters the most. So overall, I think this build has been buffed. And relatively significantly. So much quality of life, so much clear increase. I would definitely consider running this. Now, it could be even stronger depending on what the passive tree looks like. If there's a way to make up for the lost damage from Constricting Command, or if there's a new unique helmet to abuse, and they make the same mistake for a third league in a row, which I kind of doubt, Deepest Tower into Constricting Command, surely there's not a third one. But there's probably going to be ways to make the tree make up for some of the losses. And so I will look at that come tomorrow and put out another video giving you a proper how to play sort of guide thing and just show you what the changes look like. I'll just play it in standard. I've already bought a lot of the items I'll need, and I'll just, well, not this one, this is just an example. I'll need to get something that I can divine. This is one I had in my stash. But yeah, basically, the summary is this build is buffed overall. It's way better early on, which makes it an even better league starter than it already was. And I league started it last league, and it was one of the smoothest leveling experiences I've had. I literally just used Permafrost Fragmentation throughout the whole campaign, from start to finish. All you need to worry about is keeping your crossbow kind of up to date as you level, and you'll basically have no issue with damage ever. It's just such a convenient playstyle. These are literally the first skills you get on Mercenary as well. So yeah, that's just, it's a good league starter. Definitely still consider playing it. Proper update video tomorrow when I have the ability to build an actual tree. I won't be able to tell you how the damage and survivability have changed because neither of them work in PoB currently. PoB has no clue how this build's damage works. Like, it's literally impossible to calculate because it has no way to tell the verse frozen followed by then hitting normally. And even then it doesn't properly calculate it. And also Sorcery Ward doesn't work in PoB, so I can't tell you how much more defensiveness we'll get. But looking at just changing with the Morior Invictus and then going to Armor and Evasion, it looked like even taking the Sorcery Ward node, and it's not actually taking Sorcery Ward into account, so just losing the Armor and Evasion, it was more max hit in PoB than it was otherwise. More effective hit pool. Again, PoB for PoE2 is completely untrustworthy, and I kind of don't use it because it kind of sucks right now. Sorry, developers, but they don't have 10 years of build up and slow feature enabling that the PoE1 version of PoB has. It would also be really nice if GGG could get their JSON file stuff ready so they can actually release the passive tree before the league starts. That would make my life a lot easier, but whatever. They plan on doing that. It's not happened yet, but it will happen before 1.0 release. But yeah, that's the kind of vague update. Give you some directions to go. The build is still just as viable. You can still use the same things. And I'll be available to answer questions. I'll put my name on the next update video so you can message me in game and that sort of stuff. And yeah, I hope you have fun in the Last of the Druids League. And I'll see you tomorrow.